Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast covers everything tech. The hottest mobile phones, tablets, games. We review it, rate it, test it. Whether you're Microsoft or Apple, Android or iPhone, we'll give it to you again. Black and white. The Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast.
Welcome to Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Charney, and today we're going to be talking about the Apple MacBook announcement, a new Apple Watch band with a camera, and if we have time today, we're going to be talking about how browser add-ons and extensions might be selling your browser history. So let's just jump right into it. On the 27th of October, Apple introduced the new long-awaited MacBooks. So the most interesting thing that I've found is it's the touch bar. Now, I don't know how many of you actually use the function keys. Usually it's on Windows laptops. So, it says F1, F2. You know that type of thing. Has volume up and down along with screen brightness. Well, Apple has decided to replace that with a touch bar. It's a touch screen, multi-touch OLED display panel that offers up contextual controls and visual settings that change based on what app you're using. All existing Apple apps have been updated to take advantage of the touch bar, and third-party developers can use it in their apps too. Now, here's my question to you all. Is this something you would use? I mean, part of this, what I read, is off of Apple's copy. I don't completely understand the point. Now, here's my thought process, is I've been using computers on and off for 30 years, and I've been learning Photoshop probably for the last 10. I mean, I kind of dabble in it with a little bit. And so here's my thought. Whether I'm using AutoCAD, Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere, Studio One, I've been using shortcut keys my whole life. And I don't know if I understand the true point of having contextual aware function keys. Do you? I mean, think about it. How often do you actually use F1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? I mean, you do use it in some games. You do use it in some software. I'm being a tad bit facetious there, but I don't know if I really understand the point. Now, you can catch some videos of this touch bar, and it's kind of neat. And in all honesty, it seems like a bit of a gimmick to me. I have seen where it looks like you can browse photos on it. I forgot what they call it. There's a mode in Apple OS X where you can line up photos. It's like browsing an album type of thing. It looks like it does that. Now, reading about it, apparently from what I've read, the OLED multi-touch bar, it actually uses the Apple Watch OS, so it's not powered by OS X, but OS X accesses it. I don't know. It seems a little bit of a gimmick to me, but that's kind of dialed down into what it does. I mean, I kind of give you a little bit of example for it, but pretty much what it does is it allows you to touch photos, like I was saying earlier, allows you to, browse it and swipe through it. You can also use it in Safari, as far as having the back button, stop, home page button, stuff like that. And touch bar emojis for iMessage, touch brushes if you're in Photoshop. Honestly, this just seems like a gimmick to me. And I've got to use it in person. I'm withholding judgment a little bit. But this is also boosting the price a little bit. The other thing I think they're doing, I do think they're running away from their core audience just a little bit. But on the other hand, if they're going to mass market appeal, maybe this is it. But the only problem is they're going to try to do a mass market appeal with a laptop at minimum. The cheapest is $1,500. I mean, That's nothing to laugh at, ladies and gentlemen. That is a huge price, especially when you can buy a cheap Windows laptop for $279 at Walmart. And while that laptop may not be the most high-end, may not be able to do a lot of stuff, it's a $300 computer versus a $1,500 minimum. Now, the Touch Bar is available on the 13 and 15-inch MacBooks. And from what I've read, it's not available in all models. Some of the cheaper models will not have that touch bar. I'm kind of wondering, can I get a high-end MacBook without the touch bar? I mean, don't get me wrong. It's just not something I personally want, nor will I ever use. I mean, what do you guys think? Is it something you would use? I mean, it does vaguely remind me of the Optimus keyboard that came out when every button was an OLED display. There's been a bunch of stuff like this over the years, and granted, this is the first time I think this has been used just in this context that I can remember. Still seems a bit of a gimmick to me. I'm withholding judgment a little bit. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's the part that really bugs me. And I'm not talking about, oh, this bugs me. I mean, this actually kind of ticks me off. Now, Apple, in their infinite wisdom, has decided to remove every single port, all USB ports, all charging ports, in replace of 3 to 4 USB-C connectors. And you want to know why that drives me nuts, ladies and gentlemen? Is the fact Apple has now become king of the dongles. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to use USB 1.1, 2, or USB 3, you have to carry around a USB-C to USB adapter dongle. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Another dongle, another thing in your business travels or on-set locations that you can use. It's going to cost you probably anywhere between $45 to $100. And the most interesting thing about this is and I'm going to pause a little bit for a dramatic effect. Say if you have a new Apple iPhone 7, which comes with Lightning port or whatever it's called, to USB. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The new MacBook cannot natively support via plugs their own phones. You have to have that fancy dancy dongle to even charge or plug in or sync your iPhone. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Why? I don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen. The USB-C is actually a great piece of kit. But not even one USB 3 port? Not one? I just don't get it. But hey, the coolest thing, though, is instead of having that MagSafe connector, apparently from what I've been reading, you can charge your laptop by one of the 4. Yeah. I don't know. I was a big fan of the MagSafe connector just because being around busy coffee shops or busy offices, somebody walks by and trips over your cord, they don't destroy the port. That was the sole reason I loved that thing. One of the reasons I also loved that middle connector in gaming console controllers was for the same thing. It just breaks apart, you plug it in, life is good. Granted, wireless is better, but, beggars can't be choosers at the moment. Now, the other thing I don't like about the new MacBook Pro is it tops out at 16 gigabytes of RAM. 16 gigabytes of RAM. Read it and weep, ladies and gentlemen, if you do anything that requires a heavy-duty amount of RAM, like, 4K video editing, for example. But like Shay said last week, most people use proxies, but besides that, 16 gigabytes of RAM is nothing. I got a home computer with 32. I know people that have 64 and higher. And those are render machines. 16 gigabytes for a professional model seems low. On the other hand, there was a pretty good rumor I read online, and I just want to spread this because I thought it was an interesting idea. Now, this person's idea was, and I quote, what they're going to do is turn around next year and introduce the MacBook Pro Professional line. What do you think? I actually think that's a pretty clever idea. I think it's kind of horrible to do to your audience and the people who buy your computers. But this would allow them to get away from their thinner is better routine and have a thicker laptop professional model, maybe without the whiz-bang gadgets and gizmos, but just works well. Now, I do think this is kind of getting away from the vision of Steve Jobs a little bit, but I do think it would be a better idea for Apple. Now, the processor is using the Skylar? Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. Let me find yes, here it is. The MacBook Pro is equipped with a faster, more efficient Skylar processor, much faster solid-state drive with up to 2 terabytes. Count them, 2 terabytes of storage, faster RAM, and a Radeon Pro graphics card. Now, on the Radeon Pro graphics card, looks like you get 2 models. It's the 450 and the 455. Each come with 2 gigabytes of video RAM. So that's kind of offsetting the 16 gigabytes of system memory a little bit. Still, though, I want at least 32 or 64. Come on, Apple. You know you want to give me 64 gigabytes of RAM. I don't mind lugging around a computer that's, I don't know, a little bit extra weight. But that's just me. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, and I know I keep saying this, but we're going to get a little bit into marketing speak here. And this is directly off their copy because I don't know if I could say this without laughing. Now, battery life. Apple's 15-inch MacBook Pro offers all-day battery life with up to 10 hours of wireless web usage, up to 10 hours of iTunes movie playback. I have never, ever gotten 10 hours out of a laptop, even when the company who produced it, and the person who sold it to me promised that this will get up to 10 hours of battery life. It is malarkey of the highest level. Now, usually what they don't tell you is you have to limit background processes. It depends on how bright your screen is. Blah, 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 blah. Now, it really could get 10 hours of battery life. I just highly doubt it. The other thing is, I don't know if I would quantify 10 hours of battery time as all-day battery. To me, a day is 24 hours. If you're going to do that, give me 24 hours. Or at least the ability to, do what IBM and Lenovo did forever is replace my battery. I know the reason why you don't do it, Apple, but please. Now, we're going to be going to a break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the new Apple MacBook Pro, along with an Apple Watch strap with a camera.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Charney. Now I'm going to wrap this up just a little bit, give a little bit more about the specs. The 15-inch MacBook Pro measures in at 13.75 inches long, 9.4 inches wide, and 15.5 millimeters thick. It weighs 4 pounds, which is actually not a bad heft for a little laptop. It's 14% thinner, 20% smaller in volume, and weighs a half pound less. You know, Apple, little heart-to-heart here as a geek. Like I said earlier, I don't mind a little bit of a heavier laptop if I get better selectability and options like the ability to have 64 gigabytes of RAM, especially on something that to me would be one of my editing computers. That's just me, though. The 13-inch MacBook Pro measures in 11.97 inches long, 8.3 inches wide, and roughly 14.9 millimeters thick. It weighs 3 pounds compared to the previous generation machine. It's 17% thinner, 23% smaller in volume, and weighs a half pound less. Again, stop with the thinner thing and the smaller thing. I get that a lot of people want it, but I do think this is hurting your core audience, Apple. The other interesting thing, and this is the thing I thought was a very interesting change. On previous Apple laptops, they had the glowing Apple logo on the back. Apparently, they're no longer doing that. Instead, they're going to have some sort of black, matte or shiny, I didn't remember reading, logo. You know, that actually bums me out because that little glowing apple was a majorly good marketing gimmick. And it's actually pretty cool. I'll have to be honest. It was one of the things going, it's a MacBook. I don't know. realistically, ladies and gentlemen, this is something I'm still considering purchasing. I do have to do a little bit more research into what I'm going to do. I do like the build quality of Apple. It is considerably better than a lot of the laptops you can get, especially in similar price range, in my opinion. Now, if I bought the MacBook, the one I would purchase would be roughly around $3,100. And the reason why is that would be my all-around general computer. I would be gaming with it. I'd be editing video, audio, and doing whatever with it. So it is something that I do need. But I don't know. I mean, I've been looking into Windows laptops, and ladies and gentlemen, next week I'm going to have to do a little bit of research to see if there's one that is comparable, because honestly, I'm just not impressed. Thinner, better, smaller is not really what I need in a laptop. I wanted the thick MacBook Pro, 64 gigabytes of RAM, high-end Core i7, maybe an Extreme. The AMD Radeon graphics card 450 or 455 is pretty cool, but 2 gigabytes of video RAM is cool. I don't know. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? Is this something you need, want, or are you going to switch to Windows laptops? Now, granted, if you're an Apple user, you're going to buy this, because at this point, most people I know with an Apple laptop need a new computer. Their computers are running a little bit long in the tooth since Apple hasn't done any major refresh of the product lines for a while. So, we'll see. I'm definitely going to get my hands on one, probably go to one of the big box stores within the next couple of months just to really think about what I think about the function keys. But realistically, the amount of RAM is kind of what is turning me off just a little bit. Now, there's a company called CMRA that has a camera watch strap for the iPhone. It kind of turns out the first Galaxy Gear had, to be completely honest. Now, the camera band comes from an Israeli startup, Glide, who already makes an Apple Watch compatible video chat app. It looks like one of the Apple's rubber sport bands, but incorporates an 8-megapixel primary camera as well as a 2-megapixel module angled towards the face. While it's not quite clear how the CMRA integrates with the watch, it does require its own battery. Glide also introduces a stand that charges both the watch and the camera watch strap that can be used on the go. So this is kind of my take on it. I think it's neat. Would it be something I would purchase? Probably not, because I'm assuming this is at least a $100 option. Oh, hold on, ladies and gentlemen. I just found the price. CMRA won't ship till next spring. However, the pre-order is open today at $199 or $149 if you're quick. The regular selling price is $249. Really? I think this is something I'm going to skip. Now, if they wanted to send me one to test, I won't say no. Send that to Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast. Now, here's my thing. I legitimately can't think of any uses for this, because your phone, which the Apple Watch is connected to, has a much better camera. I don't really get the point of it. I mean, the Galaxy Gear had one, and I never understood the reason for it. I mean, you could probably Skype with it, take pictures with it. I record meetings. I mean, there's got to be something useful about this, but I'll be honest, I just don't see a point, especially with 8 megapixels. So now, granted, over time, it will get better, maybe 8, 16, 24 within the next decade, but would you guys get it? I mean, what would you use it for? Because I still don't see a point. Now, I keep hammering on about that, but one of the things for me about technology that it has to have a use for me. And I've got a lot of technology, or I've had a lot of technology in the past that people are like, oh, this makes no sense. Why would you want it? I found uses for it. The Raspberry Pi, for example, is one of the items that a lot of people I knew who aren't geeks never understood it. Now, if you don't remember what the Raspberry Pi is, it's a small $20 to $30 computer that uses the ARM-based processor, just like your cell phone, for example. And you can do a lot of stuff. Runs Linux. There's a lot of amazing uses for it. Look up Raspberry Pi projects, and you'll see there's a ton of ingenious people out there who found uses. And that was one of the things for it. There's a software called Volumino that allows me to turn it into an AirPlay receiver. This is what I use it for. And I'm really going to need it since Apple, in their infinite wisdom, got rid of their headphone jack, which is another thing that I use all the time. So I don't know. I mean, there's a bunch of technology that I've had over the years that to me was useful. This isn't something that I see a use for. Even the Google Glass to me was a little bit more useful than this. And I have access to one and never found a use for it because it's kind of uncomfortable to use, if you get my drift. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know I keep asking you, what do you think? But on this one and the Apple, on the Apple Watch strap and the MacBook, I really do mean it. What do you think? Now, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to go to facebook.com, type in Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast, and on the Apple Watch strap and the MacBook, I want you to tell me what you think because I'm still kind of on the fence about it. I mean, the watch strap, personally, I don't see a use for, but if you do, I want to know because this seems a little bit of a solution looking for a problem. Now, like Shay and I have done in the past, what would be something I would want on the Apple Watch? Well, one thing would be, glucose monitor for friends of mine that are diabetics. A better actual fitness tracker, something that's a little bit more precise that would be helpful. Breathalyzer, I don't know. Honestly, the Apple Watch does everything I need. I can answer and read my email. I can do apps. I can fitness check my heartbeat. What else do you need a watch to do? Do you really need it to take pictures of you? It would be kind of cool if you could, let's say use it where you're on Skype. Now, here's my thought. You're on your phone with Skype, and you need to show somebody something. So instead of taking your phone, hitting a button, switch to the camera on your phone and say, hey, Bob, look at this. You're kind of doing it like a camera. So maybe that would be useful so you can see what you're seeing and the other person is seeing. I really don't know. This is kind of stretching. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to another break. When we come back to the break, we're going to be talking about browser add-ons.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back. Now, how many of you use Firefox, Chrome, or a myriad of other browsers that have the ability to add extra functionality to the browser? I'm a big fan of Chrome, and I use stuff like Ghostery. I use AdBlock Plus. I use LastPass, Xmarks. I use a lot of add-ons. I need to probably cut back a little bit on the amount of add-ons I use. Now, some of these add-on companies are selling your browser history of millions of users to third-party companies, according to a report that aired on German national television. Reporters of Panorama managed to gain access to a large data collector that contained the browsing history of roughly 3 million German internet users. The data was collected by companies that produce browser extensions for various popular browsers such as Chrome and Firefox, which is pretty much two of the biggest ones out now, Chrome being number one, Firefox being number two. There's Opera and IE and all that. Now, here's the problem I have. I have an issue with anything that says it's randomized or privatized or whatever marketing spin you want to give it. There's always a way to get back to the user. It just takes a little bit of work. Now, they could strip all the identification things out of it. Like for example, the IP address with a little bit of patience and a whole lot of time. Some of the stuff can actually be found out. Now, I do have an issue with this. Now, some of these companies do tell you that they're selling your information. They do promise, like I said, that it can't be pinpointed to you and blah, 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 blah. But I have issues with this personally. It's an invasion of privacy. Granted, this is something that you chose to use. Now, whether this is an add-on that's blocking ads or an add-on telling you, hey, this website is safe, I still don't like it. Now, I do like stuff like, for example, Ghostery, if I remember correctly, has an option that lets you opt in and opt out of that. I think that's smart. If you're going to do it, allow people to choose. Some people are cool with it. Now, I don't do anything that I should technically have to worry about unless I really want people to know I'm on Facebook more than I should. But I still am not a big fan of it. Now, the data that Panorama bought from the brokers contained more than 10 billion web addresses. The data was not fully anonymized, which is, like I said, one big problem with it. The team managed to identify people in various ways. The web addresses, for instance, revealed user IDs, emails, or names, for instance. This was the case with PayPal or Skype, or an online check-in of airlines. What particularly is worrying is the information did not stop there. It managed to uncover information about police investigations, sexual preference of judges, internal financial information of companies, search for drugs, of prostitutes, or diseases. See, ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the reasons why I always tell people they need to read the fine print or check out the options in your add-ons. Granted, not every browser has add-ons, but take a look. See, is it the risk versus reward worth it? Now, something that ghostery for me is worth it if I can fine-tune what I see a little bit, keeping myself a little safer. If they're going to sell my online browser history, I'm okay with it a little bit because of the functionality it provides me, but this is something that I think the companies need to tell you ahead of time. There should be an option, a box, I don't care if it's in red giant words and 20-point font. They should tell you that they are selling and anonymizing your data for sale. I think they need to be upfront. Now, how many browser add-ons do you guys use? Like I said, I use quite a bit, and I'll be completely honest, I have not done my due diligence when reading them. And I don't do anything fishy. I mean, far as that, I just stick to YouTube, iTunes, Facebook, Twitter, TechMeme. I pretty much just stay the same sites every day, so if they're reading my browser history, they're going to be bored. I mean, the most interesting thing that I do is on Reddit, and usually, oddly enough, I'm in the tech section. So my browser data is boring, but I don't like the fact of selling it. Now, I'm going to sidebar a little bit into browser add-ons that I trust. Now, there's a great one from the EFF. It's Electronic Freedom Foundation or Frontier Foundation called HTTPS Everywhere. And which HTTPS is, it's the secure version of HTTP. Basically, this makes your connection more secure so people can't, spy on you, for example. Now, it doesn't necessarily work if your browser add-on, like we were just talking about, is spying on you, but it makes you a little bit more secure. And the other one I really love is LastPass and Xmarks, and we'll talk about that more in a later episode. So, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about the new MacBook. What do you think? Is it good? Is it bad? We also talked about an Apple Watch band with a camera on it. We also talked about web browser add-ons that may be spying on you. Now, I also want you to go to gsmcpodcast.com and take a look at the other amazing podcasts we have. We have MMA, we have football, just to name a few. Now, I also want you to go to Facebook.com and Twitter's where you can find our Facebook and Twitter page. And if you like the show today, if you hated the show today, matter of fact, if you have any articles or anything that you think you'd love to get our spin on, we want to know. You can contact us there. And I'm your host, Jonathan Charney. And as always, thank you for listening.